suggestions, but for the speakers who are speaking, if you'll remind them, I'll be over here. Who's going to cut anybody off? Stuart Schwartz.
Okay.
Stuart, do you mind coming? So Stuart's going to be Stuart Schwartz.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your being here.
My God, thank you for all your We're shocked by what's going on.
I think your paper just dropped.
And we're here to support you. Temple's behind you.
I think we can get like 8 more people.
Oh, yeah.
Environmental.
I think we can, let's go over
The legal mind.
Get in here.
Is there any way you could get me the agenda, to put the agenda, everybody, so that we're all aware?
I don't know. Oh, let me ask.
Yeah, please, please.
They ran out. I mean, you're going to have to call it. We're ready whenever you are.
Go ahead and take seats.
Wait, Ruben, we have some.
We're going to go ahead and get started. And I would ask the spokespersons to please come and sit at the table. Are you going to be able to get in? Good morning. I want to thank everyone who is here for joining us this morning. And I want to thank the members of the media. I was reflecting, as I was coming here this morning, I was reflecting how many times members of the media have been invited to this room, and how many times you have helped communicate what was going on in regards to the refugees that arrive in our houses of hospitality. I am grateful for the focus and your presence here this morning. I am also very grateful for the people that are here that are going to be speaking briefly this morning as part of the press conference, and I would like to quickly introduce them to you. Have Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, the Bishop of the Diocese of El Paso, Bishop Seitz, the Mayor of the City of El Paso, Mayor Oscar Leeser, Jerry Wesovich, the lead counsel, the legal team that is representing Annunciation House, County Judge Ricardo Samaniego, who is here, State Representative Joe Moody, and representing, Rabbi Simon Stuart Schwartz. Very grateful that they were able to take from their busy schedules to be here with us this morning. Why are we here? What brings us together this morning? This isn't about a discussion of country conditions that push people to flee their country. This is not about a discussion about what immigration policy should be, although I can assure you that everybody at this table has many, many thoughts about what immigration policy should be and how it should be changed, etc. This is not about electioneering. This is not about one candidate or another. What this is about is human beings who have arrived, who are now in front of us, that are in our community, and the question arises, how do we respond to these human beings? For so many years, and part of the shock of this moment is that for over 46 years, we have been welcoming the refugee across many political administrations and moments and officers, and the people have continued to knock on our door, and we have been opening that door and providing hospitality. The numbers are now in the hundreds of thousands over that 46-year period. We have been so fortunate to be able to elicit faith communities in El Paso and New Mexico, faith communities outside of El Paso, who also stepped forward and said, this is what we are called to do, is to welcome the refugee. And we're talking about very basic. It's to give them places to sleep, food to eat, places to shower and clean up, assist them in making contact with their families, their friends who can receive them. We have been welcoming, after 2014, the tens of thousands of refugees that Border Patrol, ICE, the immigration structure, the Department of Homeland Security, processed and had to release and had no place to release them to, and asked us if we would receive them. And the coalition of faith communities, we have been doing this at a time when many of you covered the hundreds and even thousands of families that found themselves on the street surrounding Sacred Heart when the temperatures got very, very cold. This is about what this moment is, and that there are individuals who have decided that that should be illegal. I personally am taken aback by the use of words like smuggling to call our houses of hospitality stash houses. Is there no shame to refer to houses of God, houses of hospitality, as stash houses? And so we gather now to begin the effort of responding to the intention to want to close down, beginning with Annunciation House, to close down houses of hospitality. And it is a forewarning to other entities that also do the work of hospitality that they can very well be next. With that, I'm going to introduce, and they're going to speak, the different members here at the table, beginning with the lead counsel, for whom I am deeply, deeply grateful, to Jerry and the team of attorneys that are now helping to navigate this. As other people on the table speak, I'm going to be stepping back so that they can come and sit. Members of the media asked to have speakers be able to speak where the microphones are. So for you to know
I
that.
should be able to.
Okay. All right. Jerry.
Good morning. On February the 7th, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sent 3 lawyers to bang on the door of Annunciation House. And when the volunteer answered, they handed her this 7-page demand for documents. She got in touch with me, and I promptly emailed the Texas Attorney General's office and said that Annunciation House will respond in 30 days. I immediately got an email back saying, no, you have 1 day to respond. And if you don't respond, we will close down Annunciation House. This left Annunciation House with no option but to sue Attorney General Paxton to challenge his abuse of power. Attorney General Paxton claims that he can walk into any business at any time and demand any documents that he wants, including customer records, medical records, legal records. He claims that if the business does not cooperate to his satisfaction, that he can permanently shut down that business in Texas. Attorney General Paxton thinks that he can do this all by himself without any judicial involvement at all. The United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit is just under the Supreme Court of the United States. And it has responsibility for saying what the federal Constitution requires in Texas. Here is one sentence from a Fifth Circuit ruling on similar conduct. Quote, "We have said that those subpoenas which do not allow for court review and demand immediate compliance are unconstitutional." Unquote. Attorney General Paxton's office received this ruling and ignores it. Attorney General Paxton compounds his abuse of power by focusing it on a religious organization that is putting the Catholic faith into practice. It's all in the Bible. Attorney General Paxton may want to dust off his Bible and read through it sometime. The volunteers at Annunciation House do a lot of hard work, and they do it because they value service to others. That is not a crime. Annunciation House is not the problem here. Annunciation House does not decide who gets to come to the United States and who gets to stay here. Other people worry about those things. Annunciation House only provides basic services to vulnerable families: food, clothing, a place to lay their heads. America remains a free country where the law protects Annunciation House's right to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I'd like to introduce Bishop Mark Seitz. Bishop, if you would want to slide over just because.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here with all of the people at the table and here in the room. For generations, El Paso has worked hard to build a resilient, welcoming borderland community, a place of welcome and dignity. Today, however, we find ourselves in an impossible position, hemmed in on all sides. On the one hand, we are challenged by serious federal neglect to provide a safe, orderly, and humane response to migration at our southern border. On the other hand, we are now witnessing an escalating campaign of intimidation, fear, and dehumanization in the state of Texas, one characterized by barbed wire, harsh new laws penalizing the act of seeking safety at our border, and the targeting of those who would offer aid as a response of faith. For more than 45 years, Annunciation House has been an effective, compassionate, local response to a complex and broken immigration system. Rooted in the gospel and born of an encounter between Ruben Garcia and Mother Teresa of Calcutta, it has led our community effort to meet the challenge of migration in recent years. Its work is nourished by long-standing partnerships with the Catholic Church in El Paso, our local government, and our federal enforcement partners, including the U.S. Border Patrol. Its work is an example of our Catholic commitment to the poor, the Christian call to love one's neighbor, and stepping into the breach to take action where many will not. Our church, our city, and our county owe Annunciation House a deep debt of gratitude. This is not about politics. It's about the gospel. I know the guests at Annunciation House, those trapped on the other side of the border, and those who have died trying to cross it. I've encountered them and have experienced their pain, suffering, and hope. This is about their lives and our shared human dignity, our community's action in this moment, the decisions that we make and the response that we offer today will be judged by whether or not we rise to that standard. Let me be clear. For the church's part, we will endeavor to work with all in pursuit of the common good of our city and nation. We will vigorously defend the freedom of people of faith and goodwill to put deeply held religious convictions into practice. We will not be intimidated in our work to serve Jesus Christ, in our sisters and brothers fleeing danger and seeking to keep their families together. We will stand in solidarity with our community's aid workers and volunteers, with our community nonprofits assisting migrants, as well as with those in the borderlands and throughout our state living under the weight of inhumane immigration policies. As one El Paso community, this is our promise today. We will not surrender the identity of our borderlands, a place which chooses compassion over indifference, human fraternity over division, and radical hope and evangelical love over hatred and exclusion. Thank you.
Rabbi Seidemann was not able to be with us, but he sent Mr. Stewart to read a statement, and so he will be next.
Thank you, Ruben. Rabbi Ben Zeidman from Temple Mount Sinai is very sorry that he could not be with all of you today. He asked me to read a statement from him, which I'm honored to read. The prophet Isaiah declared in ancient Israel, "Share your bread with the hungry and take the suffering poor into your home. When you see the naked, clothe them. The medieval Jewish authority Maimonides clarified that Jewish law requires us to provide sustenance without question to someone who is hungry, no matter the identity of that person or national origin. If someone is hungry, we must feed them. If the person is in need is a traveler, we are forbidden to turn them away empty-handed. We must give them food, a mattress, and a pillow. Most fundamentally, in Deuteronomy, we are commanded, "You shall love the stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt." These guiding moral principles of the Jewish faith have led Congregation Temple Mount Sinai to partner with Annunciation House for many years to provide food and support for those in need. Many Temple members have personally engaged in the work at Annunciation House as well, seeing the organization as a powerful way to fulfill our Jewish responsibility to care for the well-being of all people and to support the vital communal organizations who do that work. Political structures should never undermine and intimidate the well-intentioned efforts of those who strive to partner with God each and every day to minimize human suffering and offer comfort to those who seek shelter and a hot meal. Again and again, we have learned that the life-affirming needs of many in our community are too great to manage without the support of organizations such as Annunciation House, which remind and empower us to fulfill our religious obligations. People of conscience and people of faith across the political spectrum must unite to support the efforts of those institutions whose missions and purpose is to fulfill our sacred obligations to care for the needy and the stranger. In honor of the fundamental teachings of Judaism, I stand here today, together with all of you, to say unashamedly that I condemn any effort to deny food, clothing, and shelter to anyone in need in our community, even the stranger.
Next, we have Mayor Oscar Leeser, the City of El Paso.
Thank you all for being here. And I think it's really important, as we've heard the bishop, we've heard the letter from the rabbi, we heard Mr. Garcia, and then we walked in here and we noticed it's a nonpartisan room. And that's what we got to think about. This is something that we do as citizens of our country. And we live in a border. And in this border, we got to realize one thing, that we have a responsibility. As leaders of this community, we have that responsibility to provide a service and provide shelter and make sure that people are treated the way we all want to be treated. So, you know, if you go back a year ago in December when we were having about 3,000 asylum seekers coming through, we couldn't have made it without the Annunciation House. We couldn't have made it without the help of the NGOs. It was an impossibility. But we all teamed up together, the city, the county, the federal government, and we made it. And we gave people dignity, and we helped them to go to their next step. We need to realize one thing, that less than 1% of the people that come into El Paso are here to stay here. They're here to go into the United States. And it's something that we help, and we make sure that they're safe. Now, we prepare every day for the unknown. So you say, what is the unknown? We don't know if we're going to have family members. We don't know if we're going to have 500 or 2,000 or 3,000. We don't know if we're going to have single males. And this is where people like Ruben come in handy, where the families are protected, the families are safe, and we put them into the NGOs, into places like this. It's a critical service for our community, and it's a critical service for the asylum seekers that are coming in here. You know, when you see somebody in need, this city of El Paso doesn't turn its back. The city of El Paso stepped forward, and we stepped forward to hundreds of thousands, really, that we've seen in the very current future, and we'll continue to do that. And again, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is a nonpartisan house. And as the rabbi said, we will feed, we will clothe, and we'll continue to provide shelter for all. And it's really important to know that the city of El Paso was committed and stayed committed. And whether Ruben calls us and asks for help, or we call him and ask for help, it's a teamwork that this community has been able to do. So, again, I want to thank you, really, for the service you've provided the hundreds of thousands of people, and you will continue to provide that. This won't slow us down, because we can't. We continue to have people coming into our country. We continue to have people that need a shelter, need a warm meal, need clothing, and this city will not turn its back on anybody. And I think you've seen it over the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We've seen it, and we'll continue to see it, because we as a community, we as one, and that's important to know, that everyone in here, everyone back there, we speak as one. We'll never turn their backs on anyone in need. Thank you. May God bless everyone.
Next, I'd like to introduce County Judge Ricardo Samaniego.
Nadie aquí habla nada de español.
This really is about solidarity. This is bringing the community together. I cannot speak on behalf of our commissioners, but we have two commissioners here, Commissioner Stout and Commissioner Holguin. But if you see the actions from the county, you'll see how we defend humanitarianism, being there for our NGOs, and which is, unfortunate. I wish that they too could be behind us, because the NGOs have done such an amazing job in a collaboration. But this is a very important opportunity for us. To me, this is the line in the sand. What you're seeing now is a preview of SB4, of what might happen. And we have to make sure that they recognize that this is a very different community. Paxton tried to involve himself in the pandemic. We were not intimidated. Lives were ended because of that interference, but we pushed back, and we were able to accomplish and become the first community to be immunized, and that herd immunity that was so important to all of us. We're the first in Texas and second in the United States. I want to say right now, you mess with Ruben, you mess with Annunciation House, you're messing with us. This is a great opportunity not only for this, but to remind individuals that come in and think that they can persuade and that we can go. This is, maybe we're not here politically, but this is a politically move that shames us as a state, that shames us that someone would do something like this on behalf of their political views. And we cannot allow that. And I don't think there's one single community in the country that can show what we can show. And remember, we're not only doing this for us, but we're doing this for other communities, because we are going to set the bar and get other communities to feel that strength and courage to be able to, for themselves, to do the same for their areas as we're doing for ours. We are a role model, and we will continue to be a role model. So I thank all of you here. You know, like I wish the cameras were also facing the individuals and the individuals outside, because this is solidarity at its best, and we're going to show that this is the line in the sand. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Congresswoman Veronica Escobar.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Ruben, it is such a privilege to be here standing next to you and with you. And as the county judge mentioned, we're kind of like the NATO of the community. An attack on one is an attack on all. And we are all here to stand with you and support you and express our incredible gratitude for you. I think it is so important for everyone to understand the role Annunciation House plays, not just in our community, but in our state and for our nation. Annunciation House has been a humanitarian leader in this part of the world for decades, long before any local governments ever got involved in trying to assist the federal government, which they do very well and I am so grateful for. But long before that happened, the federal government could always rely on Ruben. And Ruben has been a key partner to the United States Border Patrol, a key partner in the process that happens when vulnerable people arrive at our nation's front door, seeking refuge, seeking asylum, and they get encountered by the United States Border Patrol. They get processed and they get released. And when they are released, they are not released to the streets and have to be homeless and frightened. They are released into the humanitarian care of the shelter network that Ruben Garcia and the Catholic Church have put together. And in fact, I would be willing to bet that many of us in this room have volunteered and been a part of that shelter network. It has been such a privilege for me when I have had the opportunity to cook for or break bread with many of the people who are in the humanitarian care of our humanitarian leaders. My 84-year-old mother has cooked for months and months for many of the migrants in the caring arms of our community. It is a point of pride for us as a community. It is something I brag about to my colleagues in the United States Congress. And in fact, every time I bring a delegation of members of Congress to this community, I always have them visit Annunciation House and hear from Ruben Garcia about the role that Annunciation House plays in assisting the federal government and ensuring that we live up to our country's values. So the gratitude that we all have for Ruben comes not just from a place of relief that there is this incredible organization doing this selfless work, but also that Annunciation House has created a standard and has set the bar very high for the way that we should be engaging as a country for some of the most vulnerable people who arrive at our nation's front door. I have to say, you know, I hate to bring politics into this, but this is political. And what we are seeing happening is part of a broader, terrifying assault on welcoming communities and on those who are seeking to help create humanitarian conditions. I can tell you that in the US Congress, the extreme far-right members of the Republican Party have done everything possible to eliminate financial support to local governments and organizations that are providing care, humanitarian care to migrants. I have heard on the House Judiciary Committee, Republican colleagues denounce and attack Catholic Charities and the Catholic Church for the way that it seeks to help support immigrants and migrants and asylum seekers. This is absolutely terrifying and should send a chill down the back of every person in our country. It is contrary to who we are as a nation of immigrants. It is contrary to what those of us who are people of faith have been taught all of our lives. This is a wake-up call for the country that this far-right extremism knows no bounds. And I assure you that what has happened to Annunciation House will be a pattern that will be executed on every nonprofit, every local government, every organization that offers care to anyone who might be undocumented or someone who is an immigrant and an asylum seeker in this country. So every organization, not just in El Paso, not just in the state of Texas, but in the United States of America, needs to hear the alarm that we are sounding here in this room on this hallowed ground today. So truly, this is not just an attack against Annunciation House, but this is an attack on our country's values, and this is a moment for all of us to stand together and to fight against this un-American behavior. I recently met with the Attorney General of the United States of America because I wanted to sound the alarm to him about the engagement by Governor Greg Abbott and the Texas Department of Public Safety in our community, where we have had residents who've been subjected to the dangers and perils that come with high-speed chases in densely populated urban areas, in neighborhoods, in fact. I've had constituents who have been arrested and detained without access to an attorney by Texas DPS. And I was able to secure support from my Democratic colleagues in the state of Texas to ask the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to investigate Operation Lone Star in the way it has engaged and violated the civil rights of members of our community. I have also shared with Attorney General Merrick Garland's office and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas what happened to Annunciation House and the threat that it poses to our ability as a country to address the vulnerable people in our community in a humanitarian way. But I will tell you, this is exactly what the extremists in the Republican Party want. They want chaos. They want to see a deterioration of humanitarian care because it suits their political purposes. So, Ruben, you have my incredible gratitude. We have your back. We stand with you, and we will not relent. Thank you.
Next, we have State Representative Joe Moody.
I want to start by saying that on behalf of my other colleagues from the Texas House who are all here, all of us are here, Representative Ortega, Representative Gonzalez, Representative Ordaz, Representative Morales from the Texas House are all here. I want to start by giving Annunciation House my deepest gratitude and our deepest sympathies. You do incredible work, and we've never been so angry and appalled as when we learned about this attack on you. One thing I wasn't, though, was surprised. I know far more than most of what kind of man Ken Paxton is. And believe me when I say we don't have enough time in the day to cover all of his sins. But this isn't about him. It's about us, who we are, how we respond. And I'm here to tell everyone that no matter what Paxton or anyone else does, we won't compromise our values. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. That's what he's after. Immigration is a complex challenge, one where we do need new solutions. But Paxton's seems to be to make our community worse, to make ourselves worse, until other people are simply terrified and don't want to be here. Annunciation House feeds and clothes and helps the poorest, most desperate people among us. That sends a message that we believe in human dignity, no matter where you're from. That this is a place where everyone deserves safety. That in El Paso there are open hearts filled with kindness and humility. That message is a direct threat to the calculated cruelty people like Paxton have embraced. And it's what we are called to do. For all the verses about migrants and neighbors, it's as simple as the clear command Jesus gave at the Last Supper. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know you are my disciples. We have to stand together in that very love to meet the astonishing horror that is this incredibly dangerous overreach. It's hard to believe that this is happening in Texas today, but our resistance to it is what will build a kinder, more just Texas for everyone in our future. We're called. We must answer. And together, we will. Thank you.
Our final speaker this morning is State Senator Cesar Blanco.
Good morning. First of all, I want to condemn what Ken Paxton has done, the actions that he's taking against Annunciation House. We all know that we're here today because politicians in Washington, not our Congresswoman has the Dignity Act, which would solve this issue. Thank you for your leadership on that. But most of the politicians in Washington do not want to work together. They refuse to work together. And our politicians in the state of Texas are too focused on politics. This is about elections. For too long, our border communities have been abused to advance the political agendas of so many politicians that are running in this state. And things are just so broken that some people in power would do anything rather than keeping the focus on the problem of this broken immigration system that we have in our country, rather than delivering solutions. And somehow, Annunciation House, which is a gospel-based institution, has been swept up in this political mess, this political chaos, because it's what it is, it's chaos. And they got swept up because of who they serve. But Annunciation House also embodies everything that this community believes in. It embodies what our country used to stand for. A safe harbor for migrants that are searching for a better life. For decades, Annunciation House has been on the front lines, responding to this humanitarian crisis. Their mission which is inspired by the ministries of Jesus Christ, has helped shelter countless women, children, countless families. And these are people who are fleeing violence. These are people who are fleeing persecution. They're fleeing poverty. They're looking for a better life. And many, if not most, of these folks, they've been victimized. Victimized in their countries or victimized along the journey that they've taken. You know, over 2,000 miles away from El Paso, the Statue of Liberty stands tall on Ellis Island. And it symbolizes it symbolizes the embrace of America. Welcoming migrants from different parts of the world, holding that torch of hope, the promise of America. Well, today El Paso is the modern Ellis Island. Today, where migrants once used to look at the Statue of Liberty, at that torch, at that symbol of freedom, of the American dream, they now turn their gaze to the star on our mountain in El Paso. You know, Matthew 25 teaches us, and I was having this conversation with Representative Ordaz earlier. It tells us, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in." Refugees are vulnerable. But refugees are people that are made in the image of God. And our Creator calls us to help them, to love them, to welcome them in His name. Just as Annunciation House does every single day. So, our Creator implores us to love our neighbors and love ourselves, because that's who we are. As a congresswoman said, we are all immigrants in this country in some form or fashion, whether it's our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents for some of us. All of us have an ancestor who made that trip to this country. They've woven their stories into the fabric of what our community is. And it's strengthened our country. So harassing religious-based charities won't put an end to this crisis. We need real solutions. We need solutions from our leaders in Washington, D.C., and we need solutions from our leaders in Texas. Real solutions that are focusing on actual issues at hand. That's our broken immigration system. That's the dangerous criminals. That's the cartels who exploit these innocent migrants. It wasn't even 2 years ago that we witnessed that tragedy of those that were smuggled in that tractor trailer where all those families died in the heat. These are the types of people that law enforcement and state officials should be focusing on. Not entities like Annunciation House that provide love, care, and shelter. So the state delegation is committed, the El Paso state delegation is committed to figure out solutions. We're here to support Annunciation House and to support all of those leaders who are finding real solutions. We are with you. The message to the migrants, we are with you. You are not alone. We will continue to support you. Thank you.
have time for a few questions.
Ruben, I'm gonna ask for forgiveness and not for permission. You shared that you wanted the community to know that this law is not just for newcomers. This law, the smuggling law, SB4, one of the many because of 4 legislative sessions, and my kudos to the delegation for fighting the fight from a regular session to a 1, 2, 3, 4. This is for us alike. We brought flowers because it feels like it's a funeral for our way of life. And the law says that being a good Samaritan is now against the law. What we do is illegal. I'm not an attorney. I leave it to Melissa Lopez with Estrella del Paso, and with Dylan Corbett from Hope Warrior Institute, and from Blanca Navarrete from VIA. All of our colleagues know this. We live this every day, and so it's all of us and our way of life. And on March 5th, we are suing the state because all of us, no matter our title, our suit, our clothing, if we are the other, we are going to jail. We could be deported. So I just want to express the urgency of the moment. This is not just migrants, refugees, people who got here yesterday. This is a documented person driving their sick mom who's undocumented to La Fe. I just want you to understand that.
Thank you, Marisa. Yes, yes, question?
Ruben, I want to ask you to paint a picture of what, Ruben, I'd like you to paint a picture of what El Paso would look like if Attorney General Paxton succeeds in this effort. What happens to the people to whom you provide hospitality? What happens to the El Paso community more broadly? What does life look like?
If Annunciation House is in fact shut down, I think we would be the first organization, the first NGO of others to follow, because the success would lead to them believing that we can shut down additional houses of hospitality. I also think that success in closing down Annunciation House is going to send a shudder to all faith-based communities, their ability to recruit volunteers out of a concern about their legal liability and their hesitancy to then want to be part of this. We had an insight to what that might look like in the winter when we had thousands of people sleeping on the streets around Sacred Heart. I think you're going to see that in very significant numbers. I also think that, as Marisa pointed out, and it's important that we not lose sight, this law targets any undocumented person who is living in the state of Texas, whether they've been here for 10 minutes or they've been here for 10 years, who have jobs, who have sending their kids to school. This law targets them, and it targets everyone they interact with, who then could be vulnerable to being arrested and then charged for aiding, abetting, etc. I think that's what we would be looking at. Okay.
Ruben, I'd like to add to that a little bit, because I think it's important what Ruben and the Annunciation House do. They help the community, they help the city. So the city of El Paso and the county we understand that we have responsibilities to asylum seekers, and they help us provide shelter, they help us provide meals, they help us provide clothing. Without that, we wouldn't have the success we have today. El Paso is probably one of the only, if not the only, city in the country that doesn't have people right now sleeping on the streets, that they don't have people being exploited, families being taken advantage of. Why? Because we have teamwork. We have someone like the Annunciation House and others that provide a service for us. We work together as a team, and we all understand our lane, and we stay within our lane. And Ruben is so essential to, I mean, I know that Chief D'Agostino and the Office of Emergency Management work with Ruben on a daily basis, if not probably hourly basis, right, Ruben?
Correct.
And without that, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing today. And look around. Go look around. If there's someone sleeping on the street today, it's because they want to be there. Because they're going to look for day work tomorrow. But they're not out there because us, as a whole, is providing something that no one else is being able to do. And I get phone calls from all over the country. I get phone calls from many governors. I've gotten phone calls from Washington. What are you all doing? How are you doing it? Perfect example. Working together with someone like Ruben. So what would you see? You would see a lot, just like you said, what we saw in December, till we all figured out what we needed to do and how to do it, and then we did a really, really good job as one.
Yes.
What the AG, and perhaps this might be a question for Jerry, or if you'd like to take a crack at it, but what the AG supporters would say would be, why not just turn over those documents at that first initial contact, and then fight it out in court rather than deny and then file the lawsuit? Just the reaction to that perspective.
Jerry?
We haven't.
Maybe Jerry, we'd have to have you there.
I'm sorry. We haven't refused to provide any documents to the Attorney General. All we said is that a court needs to decide when we provide documents and what documents we're required to provide under the law. It's a very sensitive matter for us to provide somebody's medical records to a government agency. We don't control what happens to those documents after they leave us. So we want to make sure that the law is followed in any disclosure of documents that we make to the Attorney General. This should be an orderly process. What has turned into this, a room full of people, could have been handled in a few emails between reasonable people. Instead, it appears that the Attorney General Paxton wants to use this request for documents simply as a pretext to close Annunciation House. And he did not realize what he was getting himself into. So we feel that the law is pretty strong on our side. And we expect that courts will jealously guard their own prerogative to decide what the Constitution requires under these circumstances.
Thank you.
Yes, Ruben, Congresswoman talked about, thank you. Congresswoman talked about this trend about going after NGOs. I wanted to get your take on that. Are you concerned about this trend of conservative groups attacking NGOs, specifically Catholic NGOs?
We are very, very concerned. I am concerned about selectively coming after Annunciation House. I am particularly concerned about the language that is used and the implications of that it could in any way, shape, or form encourage people to do terrible things to organizations, to people who are trying to provide basic human services to individuals. I'm very concerned about that, yes. Okay.
Rubén, si puedes darnos a conocer tu postura en español y también qué planea hacer Casa Anunciación al respecto.
Le agradezco su pregunta. La postura de la Casa de Anunciación es que, gracias a Dios, tenemos un equipo de licenciados que nos están representando y estamos siguiendo la guía de ellos. Como se acaba de explicar, el pedido de parte del Procurador General del Estado de Texas no es algo que hemos rehusado, sino lo que hemos dicho es: no vamos a entregar documentos así nomás, sino queremos ir con un juez que aclare bajo la Constitución qué estamos requeridos en tener que entregar. Así es que estamos en ese proceso. Es muy preocupante que al llegar a la puerta de enfrente de la Casa de Anunciación, de un momento sin avisar, 3 abogados del Procurador General, y de ese momento decir: queremos entrar, queremos revisar todo documento, queremos hacer copias de todos queremos acceso a las computadoras y hacer copias de toda la información así nomás. Y eso no se puede permitir sin tener la oportunidad de ir con un juez y decir que estamos obligados, porque hay información que tiene que ser protegida, información de individuos, que muchas entidades en el estado de Texas, los Estados Unidos, muy bien conocen su responsabilidad en proteger esa información. Lo que va a hacer la Casa de Anunciación es, vamos a insistir que el Procurador General, vamos a insistir que el Procurador se comparte dentro de la ley según la Constitución requiere. Y ni más ni menos de eso. Okay.
¿Cuál es su reacción con respecto a las acciones del procurador y exactamente las acusaciones en contra de ustedes?
Como acabo de decir, me sorprende profundamente el lenguaje que el procurador está usando, las palabras que está usando para querer caracterizar lo que es la Casa de Anunciación. Es muy, muy, muy preocupante. Y francamente, yo le tengo que decir a ustedes, yo no entiendo por qué es necesario usar ese tipo de lenguaje. Para mí es increíble que el procurador ha tomado esta ley y ha empezado de esta manera. Como el abogado Wesovich muy claramente dijo, él pudiera haber enviado un correo electrónico diciendo, tenemos estas preocupaciones, les queremos saber que nosotros queremos saber exactamente qué es el trabajo de la Casa de Anunciación y queremos hablar de tener acceso a cierta información. Lo que hubiéramos hecho es respondido a eso siempre basado en que la información es información que legalmente nos permite entregar bajo la Constitución o información que nosotros tenemos el derecho de decir, sabes que no podemos dar esa información. Así es que es algo que no tuvo que haber sido de esta manera.
Las palabras de Ken Paxton solamente son palabras. En la corte requiere prueba. Él no tiene. Él solo tiene palabra.
Señor García, ¿cómo califica precisamente esta actitud del Estado y qué representa para usted que pues, toda la comunidad se haya unido para apoyar?
Mire, para mí es muy preocupante. Tenemos una comunidad en el estado de Texas que por por décadas, es una comunidad que ha podido vivir con todos los miembros. Sabemos que Texas es un estado que tiene una relación muy profunda, muy fuerte con México, a través del comercio, a través de mucha gente que vive en Texas, tiene familiares, tienen parientes en México. Eso es lo que ha evolucionado en nuestro estado. Es tan preocupante que estas leyes poco por poco van creando una división. Toman un grupo y lo convierte contra otro grupo. Ya ves, que en el caso personal mío, mi abuelitos de parte de mi mamá, ellos vivieron en México. Ellos se cruzaron el río y después de que estaban aquí, ellos legalizaron, eventualmente se hicieron ciudadanos. Leyes como esta están queriendo convertirnos en una postura de oposición unos contra los otros. Y creo que todos debemos de estar muy conscientes que nos quieren llevar a eso y tenemos que resistir. Yo estoy muy agradecido por toda la gente que está aquí este día, que con una voz está diciendo lo mismo. No vamos a permitir, no queremos permitir ese tipo de división entre nosotros mismos.
Le quiero decir una cosa que es muy importante. Comienza ahorita aquí y dónde va que siga. Y sigue otra comunidad, sigue otra parte en los Estados Unidos y comunidades como El Paso necesitamos la ayuda porque sin ellos no podemos hacer lo que estamos haciendo y ayudar a los asylum seekers que están viniendo aquí. Pero comenzando con Ruben, ¿quién sigue? Y de eso, ¿quién más sigue más? Es una cosa que es muy importante porque lo que estamos haciendo, estamos ayudando a personas que nomás vienen aquí para hacer la vida de ellos mejor, como hicimos todo.
Más un comentario, el que va a tener el mayor beneficio van a ser los carteles. Algo que hemos aprendido nosotros es que cuando para el proceso o la gente, los migrantes se encuentran en la calle, es cuando están más vulnerables. Y lo que hace Ruben y Annunciation House, no se pueden imaginar el número de vidas que se han salvado o gente que no han tenido que estar tan vulnerables. Lo que está haciendo directamente es un gran beneficio para el reto de los carteles. Lo sabemos claramente que cuando han estado es cuando entran los carteles.
¿Usted cómo califica las acciones del procurador Paxton en contra de esta comunidad?
Pues obviamente él sabe que alarmar a la gente, crearles confusión, como le digo, ahorita los carteles están encantadísimos, porque entonces ese miedo que tienen, comienzan la malinformación, les comienzan a prometer cosas, te vamos a proteger.
Subirle el precio también.
Sube el precio de los carteles. Eso es lo vulnerable. Puedes deshacer las gran cosas que ha hecho Ruben y Annunciation House. No sé, la gente, lo que no vemos, tal vez es el valor más grande. Y lo que no ha visto la comunidad es, como les digo, el número de familias que no tuvieron que pasar por más dificultad, las vidas que han salvado. No sé, yo me imagino que hay tantas vidas que se salvaron porque estaba Annunciation House y Rubén al frente.
I would like to thank everybody who came here this morning. We're going to conclude it now. Individually, members of the media can approach people on the table. And I want to thank you all for coming here this morning. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
You give us the legal perspective with the emotion.
There's a lot of people working on it. There's a big
The breakdown of due process.
Amen.
Thank you for what you're doing in the field. No, but I mean, even from like, I don't know. I've been thinking like, how do they pick it up?
Thank you, Judge.
Yep. All right, pardon me. It's a bit hectic in here. All right. Take this off. You all set, Mario? Oh, yeah, sure. So, are we all set, Mario?
You're good. You're good.
You're good, sir? So, Judge, can you said this is a line in the sand for us. What does that mean from a practical standpoint?
Well, one of the things we learned, like in the pandemic, is that if you don't stand up to Paxton, he continues more and more.